Russell.
Nice to be with you.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to see you.
Another.
This is nice to meet you. Hello.
Asia Russell, Executive Director for Health.
Yes. Thank you for your work.
Thanks. Hi, I'm Asia Russell, Executive Director for Health.
Oh, great. What'd you think?
I just embarrassingly didn't recognize your husband.
That was pretty fun.
So now,
Good night.
better day.
How'd you get in?
Just now.
Congrats on last night.
What's that?
Congrats on last night.
Thank you. Oh, good.
Yeah.
One down. How many to go?
Nearly to go.
But
Yeah.
the first one's always
2019,
always big.
so.
Yeah, exactly.
I am very excited for this conversation. I want to open up by thanking Peter for having us here. We're really excited about this conversation because, as you know, it's the biggest World Pride weekend ever. But there's a lot that we have to discuss around HIV/AIDS and just queer health policy. So these two folks are taking time out of crazy weekend to be with us and hold space. So would you guys just like to introduce yourself, talk about what you're about, you know?
Totally. So my name is Jason Walker. I work for an organization called Vocal New York. I'm the HIV/AIDS campaign coordinator. Most of the work I do in the city is around helping low-income folks living with HIV/AIDS have access to housing. I also started up our LGBT youth organizing project called Queerocracy, where we organize LGBT young people around the social determinants of health. They kind of like inform HIV, so like homelessness and poverty and employment and jobs. I've been positive since 2008. So I'm a person with HIV, formerly homeless myself, but now taking the lead and like helping to organize my community around housing and other social justice issues.
Peter Staley, I'm a long-term HIV/AIDS activist, and most recently I'm doing a lot of prep work on PrEP. And I co-founded with a bunch of amazing next-generation activists, a bunch of millennials. Jason's one of them. I co-founded a group called PrEP for All, and we've been making lots of news and covering CDC patents and stuff like that.
And I'm Asia Russell. I'm an ACT UP Philadelphia alum.
Okay.
And in 1999, AIDS activists and human rights activists and trade justice activists formed a group called Health Gap. And our work was around closing the gap in triple combination therapy in sub-Saharan Africa and across the developing world. Because the inequities that people were suffering and dying from in the US were being replicated, magnified, amplified across the globe. And the US thought it had no role to play in correcting that, and in fact was exacerbating it through some of its trade policies under the Clinton administration, unfortunately. Creating environments of robust generic competition in South Africa, Thailand, Brazil was considered a barrier to trade under Charlene Barshevsky, who was then the US Trade Representative. Correct. So Bill Clinton got the education of his life from AIDS activists. In 1999, when Al Gore announced his candidacy as president, he was zapped by AIDS activists in Carthage, Tennessee, and then the very next day in New Hampshire, and then in Washington, D.C. Gore's greed kills AIDS drugs for Africa was the issue put forward by my colleagues and comrades and people living with HIV. Because at the time, the Clinton administration, Charlene Barshevsky and others were actually obstructing efforts to reform the apartheid-era Medicines Control Act in South Africa. People were trying to make generic HIV medicine available to millions, literally millions of dying people. And the media wasn't covering it at the time. And it was considered an issue where Republicans and Democrats were both on the wrong side, the side of Big Pharma. So it took social justice activists around the world, not just in the United States. We were educated by people with HIV in South Africa, Brazil, Thailand, and elsewhere to do something about it. So we did something about it. South Africa got removed 6 months later from the 301 trade watch list that Charlene Barshevsky had. And the only thing to come out of the WTO ministerial from Seattle in 1999 that was anything other than the protest was an executive order from the Clinton administration that no sub-Saharan African country should ever be put in that situation again when the issue was an HIV medicine. So since then, now of the 37 million people living with HIV worldwide, 60% of them have access to treatment, but we're haunted every single day that we could have moved faster, further for everyone. And yet, all the activism that was brought to bear at least moved us to the point where we are now. And that's why we're here, is to talk about how a leadership gap is forming and what has to take place next. And there's a domestic dimension about prevention and treatment, and there's a global dimension, and the time is now. I mean, unlike many other global goals, defeating HIV by 2030 is actually possible, and it can pave the way to